All right, this episode is brought to you by Gray Block Pizza. As well, this episode is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter, it is everything you need for business needs. Are you hiring someone? Do you not have someone? Well, guess what? ZipRecruiter is a better way to find that missing person. It's something better than just posting your job online and just praying for the right people to see it. You can't be praying about stuff online. That's not real. So guess what? ZipRecruiter knew there was a smarter way, so they built a platform, and it finds the right job candidates for you. ZipRecruiter learns what you're looking for, identifies people with the right experience, and invites them to apply to your job. 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. Guess how long that is? Tomorrow. And right now, my listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, for free. How much? Nothing. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/TPW. That's ZipRecruiter.com/TPW. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. I will be in Tampa, Florida, April 6th and 7th. I just want to let you guys know that so you can come out and see me. I also have other dates coming up in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey at Bananas Comedy Club and at Cherokee Casino and some other places, but I'll put those on the calendar coming shortly to you. As well, you need to know about StarFlow. StarFlow. It's the location for fans trying to link up and get closer to their favorite celebrities. StarFlow is a safer ecosystem where your information won't be sold on that dirty black market. Hey, come over here. Yeah, get this dirty information. StarFlow provides a hub for consumers to access their favorite talents and celebrities and exclusive content in seconds. It's available on the App Store at starflow.com or at starflow.com. It just stays out of that sell your information secondary market. It's a safe place where you and celebrities can get together and not worry about being judged for words you're using or things you want to research, or it's pure. It's the way it's supposed to be without all these big dogs getting involved and scratching at your beehole. Go to starflow.com and check it out. The link will be in the information. And now, let's see what we got. There you go. That's Jameson Flood right there. And that gentleman named Jameson Flood, and I'm not sure where he's from, but that is his music right there. That song called Every Night. And thank you guys for being here today. Welcome to this past weekend. You know, I almost cut the lights off in the studio tonight. You know, because it's, you know, I'm making this, it's nighttime, and this is going to be ready for you guys in a few hours. But I almost cut the lights off, man, because some of them are like feeling that romance, boy. And the funny thing is, I notice even if I cut the lights off, even if I'm by myself, I can feel like a little bit of romance. You know, I can feel like a little bit of romance kind of come just tickling my tits a little, you know? Like try this, man. If you put a shawl around your neck, you know, put like a soft cloth around your neck, or even if you can't afford a soft cloth or a shawl or a scarf, nothing heavy. Don't get one of those heavy ass scarves. You know, don't show up in a heavy you look like an idiot. I'd go 2 soft scarves before I go 1 heavy scarf. You know, 1 heavy scarf, that's some Amistad type shit. You know, those days are over, okay? Go 2 soft scarves and give us free. But I love But if you put on, and if you don't have a scarf, get you some paper towels. Get you like about 9 paper towels or 8 paper towels in a row, okay? Take your shirt off. Take your shirt off. If you're a man or a woman, take your shirt off. All right, it doesn't matter. Some people have chest, some people have tits, Tits is just fat chest. That's all that is, And chest is just lean tits. That's so this, and some people have either one. My mother had them A cups, them baby A's. And so I didn't see a lot of tit around the house, even if sometimes when you're growing up, if you're a child and your mother have nice breasts, you get that free visual. You get that, oh, okay. Even though it's your mother, you're not being like that, but you still get that hit. But my mother had them A cups, so it was more, it wasn't as, I didn't get those voluptuous visuals around the house. But what I'm saying is this, is that romance can be achieved even by oneself. Everybody thinking, oh, I got to have somebody to be romantic. I got to meet somebody on the internet and meet up with them somewhere, in a parking lot or something to be romantic. Well, that's bullshit. Those are the old days. Nowadays, here's something you can do around your house even if you're alone. Cut the lights down. Put a few candles around your house. Don't put a bunch of candles, okay? Especially if you don't use candles a lot, because you're somebody that's going to probably burn to death. So just use a couple of candles, put them around, and then get you them, put on a soft scarf, or even 2 really soft scarves. Or get you a long string of paper towels, put that around your neck. And now just kind of glide around your house a little bit. Make sure the children are asleep or whatever, Put a couple candles and just kind of like, lean against a wall somewhere and be like, oh, fancy seeing you here. Or open the refrigerator and just take a hit off that coolness. Feel that cold air just fucking tickle your titty ends. Yeah, you can make romance wherever you want. Just be like, oh, what was that in the distance? Even if it was nothing, even if it was just a puppy over there touching his little dick or something with his paw or scratching himself. You know what I'm saying? You can make romance wherever. Everybody acts like we got to do this or got to do that to make romance, but you can make your own romance. And that's something that I'm starting to realize in my life. That just because maybe if I don't have love in my life at some point, it doesn't mean that I can't create romance in my life. You could do something nice for yourself. Get you a couple of them, Valentine's is over. They got a good deal on chocolates out there. Go get out there and get a 40-pack of chocolates, man. And you can get those. Have you 2 or 3. Give some to a neighbor. Now suddenly you eating chocolates with someone. You can make your own romance. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to get people to be alone. I don't want people to be alone. We got this world right now that's just pushing us to be alone. They just advertising everything, do you, do you, do you. Well, everybody doing themselves in this, and then you got no friends. You got no friend. You don't have anybody to borrow a shirt from or anybody to borrow some sugar from. But if you happen to be by yourself, that doesn't mean that you can't have a little bit of romance in your life. I do different things. Sometimes I'll put my pants in the dryer and then put them on my legs. What is that? Ooh, Daddy got them hot sticks hanging off his hips now. You can treat yourself to different things. You can do different things for yourself to get that romance. And this is the time of year to do it. Because spring is in the air. They got that love. They got that nest. If you get outside early or something, you'll hear birds in the distance. Fucking or even just, petting each other heavily. You'll hear baby birds out there waiting for that worm. You can see even some hookers are out there. Even hookers are happy in the spring. You ever notice that? Oh, you get a wintertime hooker? You know what I'm saying? You get that December escort. That lady ain't fired up. She ain't excited about the potential blowjob money that could be headed her way. But you get out here, you get out here at these times, and ladies are fired up. If they're working out in the streets, even ladies are fired up because it's springtime and love is in the air. But I'm trying to create some romance for myself, I'm trying to create some romance because we have to do it. You go through times in your life where, I feel you go through times in your life where you don't have that love, where you get into bed at night and you just kick your legs out across the other side of the bed and there's nobody there. It's just you just swimming out there like that Nirvana baby in that album cover. You're just swimming out there. And you want somebody, you want to have that other, you want to have a little bit of love in your life. But that doesn't mean you can't be romantic. You can still do romance a little bit. And that's one thing I would do from time to time is I would, wear something kind of sexy, even for a man. Everybody acts like only women can have sexy clothing or do something sexy. But a man can wear sexy stuff. You could wear some really large pants or something. You could, I remember sometimes I would take, my grandmother, whenever she died, they gave us some of her stuff. And she didn't have much. She had a strong ceramic reptile collection. And then she had, what else did she have? She had she had saved a lot of baked goods from over the years, but in the box still. She had like German chocolate cake from like 1974, the recipe box. So we had a couple of, exotic old cakes and stuff, unmade cakes in the packaging. But she had these kind of naughty shirts, I thought. Blouses, they call them, blouses. And to me, they look like just fucking naughty curtains just hanging off an old lady's neck, And so when my grandma passed, I remember I was young. I was just coming into, puberty and everything. And I was just rocking into, puberty. That's when your dick will wake you up. You don't even need an alarm clock. Your dick will wake you up because it wants to hound around and look for some cooch, or fire off at some cat. And I noticed that, I got about a quarter box of them blouses. Because we had my grandmother had 4 grandchildren, so everybody got a quarter of the items in this box. Because some senior center she was at sent us a box of her, goods, death goods or whatever, because she passed. And so I got a quarter box of these blouses, a lot of baby blue and, mint green, but there's barely any green in it. Like you had to look deep into that blouse to even just catch that hint of green. It wasn't really a mint. I thought it was kind of like a summer lime. But I remember I'd put those blouses on, dude, and honestly touch myself. And I know that's crazy, but at the time in my life, when I was coming into my own, really, that I felt exotic. It made me feel it was sexual. It was sexual. And I remember I'd catch some real strong ends, and that means nuts, honestly, in the springtime. Because your body's vibrant, and that's where we are right now. People's bodies are vibrant. You'll see a woman just drop a batch of eggs in the park right now. It's that time of year. People are fertile. You'll see a guy, jerking off into some begonias or something. Nature is looking for each other. You'll see you'll see a couple tulips in the park blow a dude, a big tulip. Don't be surprised. I'm just saying that love is in the air. And that if you don't have somebody, if you don't have another person at this moment, that doesn't mean that you can't treat yourself in ways to feel loved. That's what I'm feeling. Because you know what? I'm sick of letting these lonely bugs live inside of my body for free. I'm sick of walking around thinking, I don't have nobody to hold my heart at night. I don't have anybody to share a toothbrush with. Or I don't have a good person to, pull their hair out of the drain when I use my shower. I don't have those love rituals in my life. but you can have them. You know, and you have to, some of those you might just have to create by yourself in the meantime. But you can do fun stuff for yourself. You know, put some fucking honey on your thighs. You know, put some tzatziki on your fucking hip bones. Do something for yourself. Because you don't have to have another person to have romance. But I remember, yeah, man, I would get shirtless and I would put that long string of paper towels around my neck. And I would just kind of peruse around the house in the dark, you know, with those candles lit. Just waiting for a big, beautiful lady just to come and just, you know, just blow me out. So you have to sometimes create romance for yourself. But I want to thank you guys for being here with me. You know, we had such a great response last week on the podcast, and it's inspiring. I want to thank Gray Block Pizza. That's our charter sponsor. I could not have even started this podcast or really kept it going, I don't think, if at some point somebody didn't say, hey, I want to help. And I'm grateful to them. Gray Block Pizza, 1811 Pico Boulevard in Los Angeles. If you driving around, you ain't got nothing to do, you got 40 minutes to kill, go to Gray Block. Open your mouth. Give them a couple bucks. They give you some Italian. Get that hit up. What else is going on, man? We had some wild calls that came in. You know, last week I know things got a little bit, you know, we got heavy, man. We'll keep it all. You know, in this podcast, it goes where it goes. It goes where it goes. Supposed to have my first guest this week. Do I want to tell y'all who it is? Do I not want to tell you? I don't know. See, I'm still a little bit nervous in this scenario. But I don't want to tell you because I don't want to get people's hopes up. But also sometimes I want to put it out into the air because, you know, I want my guests to want to come on, I guess. You know, I get nervous about having guests because I get nervous sometimes to ask people to do stuff for me or to do stuff with me. You know, I have, I don't know, all my life I've felt like that. You know, if I ask somebody to do something or ask somebody to do something even that's awesome, you know, even that, ask somebody to come spend some time, that they're gonna, you know, I guess maybe that they're gonna say no because they think that something's wrong, that I guess the fear is that I'm not good enough, you know, that they're gonna be like, oh nah, your little podcast or spending time with you isn't, and that's a Hollywood thing, you know, it's just a Hollywood thing that sometimes, but that's what keeps me sometimes from asking certain, you know, guests, and I'm trying to just, you know, get friends that I can be comfortable with and be comfortable around, so. But thank you guys for holding on your patience with me there. We got the chairs in. We have everything. We got a guy coming tomorrow to hook up some cameras and get it right. But we had this call come in, man. We're going to roll through some calls. They're going to fit right into the show. I'm getting more comfortable with making things flow. And yeah, man, treat yourself well. You know, you're not lonely. You might be alone, but you're not lonely. You know, and there's ways to get through it. We got this. Let's take this hitter right here. Here we go. Oh, that's a song. Here we go. Let's take this. Hold on. Hold on, man. Damn, boy. Some white guy. Hold on. Ah! All right, we got this dude. Here we go. Hold on.
Hey, Theo, what it is, man. Gang, boy. How you living?
I'm living, brother. Onward.
Say, I want to ask you a question. Have you ever done one of those hot springs baths? Today I was in Glenwood, Colorado, and I did one of those hot spring baths. They have all the minerals and everything in it.
A hot spring bath, man. Yeah. I mean, have I done some? Yes, I have. I have done one. I have done some. Let's hear a little more.
I paid $24 for a bath, bro. I mean, what the hell? Am I crazy, boy? Right?
Well, if you paid $24 for a bath, man, I don't know if we know each other. You know, because you taking them high price dips. You know, I'm not the kind of guy that will spend $24 on a bath. Have I been to some hot springs? Yes, man. I actually, as a student, we took a trip one time into, I did work study on a cruise ship, and we took a trip over to Japan, And we walked off into Kyoto, out into the hills and stuff like that, you know, and that's fucking, I mean, that's, you can buy some exotic swords out there. When you get far enough out into those Japanese hillsides, it's like damn Zelda. You know, you could reach into a bush and pull out a fucking, you know, an electric vase and change it and trade it in, 9 minutes later under a bridge for a couple exotic swords. And we were out there in the countryside, what little countryside there is in Japan, and they had a hot spring. And so me and my buddy, rest in peace, one of my good friends, we went in there, dude, and my buddy was really good at yoga. And he had one of them hairless bodies. He had a hairless body. And, I'm Polish Nicaraguan, dude, so I'm a farmer. I'm a farmer at heart. And, I got at least a couple of hectares of decent hair around my body, especially around my ass and hips. I'm that hair boy. I'm that hair boy. When I die, they're going to have to braid my legs before they put me in the casket. Because I ain't going out like that. I'm haired up. You know what I'm saying? My uncle used to have to gel down his neck for church because he had all hair on his neck. And some people are thinking a beard? Nah, not a beard. Okay, I know where a beard goes. I'm talking about follicled up around that neck. And so that's where my family's at when it comes to all that kind of stuff. But anyway, my buddy was hairless. And he went in there and, we went to these natural hot springs. And in Japan, in this place, I believe the pronunciation is Kyoto. In Kyoto, they have, you go in and you pay a couple dollars, might have been, $4. And you get that, they give you these slippers, these magical kind of slippers, and you go in. And they got men have been sitting in these springs for like a month. They got one dude in there, he was all pruned up. I mean, this guy looked like about a 90-year-old asshole. You know what I'm saying? He was, kind of damp and kind of pruned up. And then you had a couple of other business dudes in there smoking cigars, but I mean, everybody fully naked. And I'd never even spent time around the Japanese. They had a rumor that they had an Asian kid when I was young, about 17 miles away from where I grew up. And we saved money to go see him one time in a taxi, but he wasn't there. So that was I don't know, that could have been just a scam or something the taxi company started just to get people excited about traveling locally. But we heard a rumor there was an Asian boy, and we went, and there wasn't one. There was a house, somebody built a house with like a roof kind of crazy on it. Like this kind of exotic roof, but that was it. So we wasted that money. That was about a $60 venture for me and my two buddies. However, so back to the story. So we go in this place, and they got a lot of Japanese gentlemen in there, and everybody's naked. And my buddy, he was kind of a showman. He was kind of a showman, and he did yoga, and he could do it well. So next thing you know, my buddy's in this hot spring, and everybody's getting in these pools and taking these dips, and one of them's like this clay water and stuff. And my buddy, in front of like about 9 dudes, like gets onto his hands, gets like straight upright, like so his legs straight up in the air, and then just completely does his legs out to the side and just showed that frickin', showed that, that little gopher cannon, showed that beehole to about 9 Japanese guys. And I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, first of all, I'd never seen really another man's butthole. I'd seen one other man's butthole, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But I'd never seen a group of guys see another person's butthole all at the same time. And so that was kind of the riveting part, because it's one thing to see somebody see a butthole. You can see that on the internet now. But this was seeing a whole flock of men in a language that I didn't speak, and a lot of time when you see someone who speaks a different language or from a different culture, everything is a little different, some of their mannerisms and the way that they, behave in the way in the face of fear, in the face of excitement, their instinctual reactions to things, they're running off of a different DOS system, off of a different template, than we are sometimes in other cultures. But when I saw these 9 Japanese gentlemen, catch a hit off my buddy's, off that dirty baby wink. Man, it was pretty exotic, man. I'll say that. About 6 of them bowed, kind of did a quick bow forward. One dude looked like he, almost like it was a sign, like he'd been waiting for a sign from the heavens or something, and this was it, and it wasn't good. And then I think one dude was blind, so he didn't even see it. Blind, if you're blind, you don't know if somebody's showing a butthole or if it's just, people are just, doing small talk. You don't know what's going on, really. And I don't remember the other guy. I don't remember, but those are the reactions that I remember. The last guy, I don't think he liked it. I think he might have scored it a 2. But that was a time that I went to a hot spring. That was my experience with a hot spring there in Japan. I did get tickled by a thick boy one time on a cruise ship in a hot tub, and he was, I don't want to say he was on uppers or drugs, but it was because it was early in the morning and he was only about 12. But if I had ever had to go to court over that, I could not imagine that this boy wasn't on some ecstasy or something, on some, children's ecstasy. But look, man, if you're taking $24 baths, Daddy, we don't know each other. Okay, because that's where you bathing. That's $3 just to even get in the. That sounds like a $3 entry fee to a tub. I'm out. You running on them. You running on them high class. You're dipping in those high class waters. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'll pour a couple cups of warm water on your shoulders for $9. But it seemed like you're doing, you spending extra money. That's like one time somebody put me up at a hotel room. I was doing a show. I don't even remember where this was, man. I think this was actually in South Africa. And I got booked on this wild show at this casino. And Mark Curry was the headliner, hanging with Mr. Cooper. I think Joe Coy was on it. We had a great group of comedians that were over there, and I was having a blast. This was an exotic locale, and I'm over there and I'm fired up. And then they said the room was like $600 a night, and I couldn't even go to sleep. I'm like, what? If I even doze off for an hour, that's $70. So I can imagine if you spending $24 in a bath, you better get your money's worth. I don't know how you do that in a group bath. How do you get your money's worth out of a group bath? That's what, But the other time, I forgot. The other time I'd seen some gentleman's, dirty little secret power pothole was they had this man in our neighborhood, and when he was young, he would, I guess we were younger than him, but he, from far away, man, this dude was kind of wild, I guess, Mr. Garrett. But what he would do was, and he might have been, honestly, he might, and I shouldn't say this because I didn't know it at the time. He might have had some mental disabilities. I don't know that for sure, but he's still over this family, and he was getting older, and he wore a book bag all the time, and he had kind of a, somebody in his family cut his hair. There were some warning signs, but he would give you a couple of dollars, $2 or $3, and then he'd walk off about 40 feet and show you his asshole. And the only thing was, to make sure you got to keep that money, you had to stay there and look. And it wasn't, everybody these days, like everything's pervy and everything's, in New York and LA, all these people writing all these articles and all, they're like, this is perverted and this is this and this is that. Man, shit wasn't perverted back in the day. I was at the Comedy Store last night, and Joey Coco Diaz was saying that Christmas didn't start until somebody had their dick out. And I'm not saying that I 100% agree with that, and I know he's joking, obviously, but people got to quit tripping. It's just a bunch of people that are making money off of making everything a big deal. That's what I hate about some of these environments, because 90% of people don't give a fuck. That's 90% of people do not care. If there's a big difference between somebody getting molested and you see somebody pull their dick out. You can't see a dick? What's wrong with you? You came out of a dick. Somebody show you their wiener or break a tit out somewhere? Oh, well, look the other way. Grow up about it. I'm so sick of all of this, man. And I'm sorry, I know I'm leaping on this thing, but that kind of stuff makes me mad, man. And all it is clickbait. It's all these people just making money, man. That's all it is. That's why don't be shocked when you get, when you get a politician that comes in and just says whatever he wants, everybody's like, fuck yeah. I'll listen to anybody who can say whatever they want. Fuck, who gives a fuck? Because we're so tired of the other thing. People are so tired of the other thing. I'm so tired of every article, everything being somebody did something wrong. Somebody said something wrong. Somebody hurt somebody's feelings. I'm watching these kids this weekend. They had the Parkland and, talking about that tragedy. And, man, there's a great documentary that's out there. And I say great, but it's, it's about the Newtown, the Newtown tragedy that happened in, I think, Newtown, Connecticut, I believe. And forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's really, it makes you feel, man. If you want those feels, you can go watch that. But I'm watching these children this weekend and hearing some of them talk, and it's exciting. It's exciting to see kids be empowered. It also, some of it's like, why are, I agree. There's some weapons they shouldn't have out there. They shouldn't have them. I agree. Sometimes it'd be great. Put a mandate on it. We don't really need to make any more guns for 10 years, maybe. We have a lot of guns. Also, though, why, where were these kids speaking up when one of their when there's a kid at school who's weird or who's uncomfortable? And I know that this, that people had reported this, the Parkland kid who committed this tragedy, they reported him. People reported this kid to the FBI. I mean, the FBI was chasing, hunting down, mythical servers around the universe. That I don't know whatever happened with that scenario, but obviously they had their, or whatever they were doing, who knows? But they didn't, it seemed like every protocol was taken. The only protocol that we can't really fix, they can change the age of guns, sure. That you can't buy them at 18, I think that's okay. You can't buy an assault rifle at 18? A-okay, bro. I don't think you should be able to buy gasoline if you're an idiot. I've always thought that. Oh, you're an idiot? We're going to give you and you can buy 300 miles worth of gas? That means now your dumbass can go wherever you want to? Fuck that. If you're dumb, you can buy gas. You get enough gas to get to school. That's it. You walk back in, you're like, you only gave me like a mile and a half worth of gas. And the attendant's like, yep, that's because the community college is, and there you go. I don't think if you're severely ignorant, you shouldn't be able to just ride around the universe, spreading ignorance everywhere. But I wonder where are all these kids speaking up when it's, when people are, when you see that you got that strange bird in your class. And why does this stuff happen now? I mean, I think a lot of it, I've said it before, I'm not trying to get too serious, but sometimes we got to talk about things that are topical. We got to talk about that stuff. And I'm okay to be wrong. I don't know. I have no idea. I've never been a parent. I was a kid. I used to make fun of some kids sometimes, but not as bad as some kids did. I would joke around. I would probably joke around with everybody about the same. And I think everybody kind of got joked around with here and there. But if I saw somebody that I thought was really getting, being rude to, I would always step in and try to say something, try to help. But some of that stuff's just going to occur. But, I'm just like, well, what? I don't know. I just don't. Sometimes it just seems like it's all this weird show that's going on. Like, I'm happy these kids are motivated. And I'm happy that, yeah, they shouldn't have to be in such fear. Because, dude, when you think about that, think about that. Think about that. Think about going to school now When this stuff starts to happen every couple months, if it does, or every year, if it increases, man, I'd be scared to go to school. If I'm already a kid that has a lot of anxiety, I'd be so scared. And then the kids who seem like they are uncomfortable at school, or the kid who was, kind of the odd duck back in the day. Now every kid at school was probably like, this dude's going to shoot up the fucking school. Because that's how kids are. Kids have this thing built into them. I just don't know. I don't know. I just don't know what some of it is. It's like, yeah, you have this show, you have this, these marches and everything, but it's like, is it just, I don't know. I just don't see how that solves things. But maybe there is no solution. Maybe some of it's time. I think also we are going to start to learn, like, in time, like, because, I grew up in a generation where we didn't have as much technology, and then we had too much technology. And I think we're going to start to learn how to use technology a little bit better and how to fit it in with who we are as humans, I hope. Because it's certainly gotten out of control. I mean, you had all these, like, you have kids so disconnected that just live in worlds of video games, and you got Uber cars running over people. You got drones filming the neighbor's tits, male or female tits. So some things we got to roll back on now, filming them neighbors' tots. I think that's kind of okay with me. But if you're taking them $24 baths, dude, we don't know each other, okay? Because you taking them, you taking those expensive dips, and I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? You'll catch me in a $41 room at the Ramada, where I can bathe as much as I want, and it's included in that $41. So I can do whatever I want. I remember one time being at a Ramada. They didn't even have a air conditioning in that bitch. The third floor was closed because they had some murder. They had some murder up there. And so we were all down. We had to stay second floor or lower. And I remember one of the chip machines. Well, I remember, first of all, they didn't have an air conditioner. So we had one of those little freezers and one of those little refrigerators in our room. And we just opened the door, and we would kind of sit by that when we got real hot and let that coolness hit us, that little box, one of those little brown box refrigerators, those little bitty ones. And you just get that, you'd open the door and just get that hit of cold air and then shut it and wait for it to make another cold hit. And then I remember playing hide and go seek, and the chip machine had been all busted out or shot up. Somebody had shot it up, could have been a brother. I mean, it could have been, could have been an aggressive white dude. But somebody has shot up one of those Frito-Lay vending machines or whatever, and somebody hid inside of it, dude. All the stuff inside of it was out or had been broken, and somebody hid inside that chip. You could just open the door and get in there, and they just in there just, kind of trying to be real calm and look like just look like a whatchamacallit or something. Like the candy, just trying to stay out of the way. Let's cruise to another call, man. Here we go. What happened? What's going on here?
Hey, Theo. It's Andrea again from AZ.
This is Andrea from Arizona. And, unfortunately, I don't know if I remember the first time you called, Andrea, but thank you for calling back. More?
From Arizona. But I also have another question,
Well, you got to ask a first question before you ask a second one. I don't know how much gasoline you're going to get. Let's go. More?
What type of girl do you like? Do you like... I imagine you like them all shapes and colors, but what type of personality do you like in a girl? Do you like her to be funny like you, or docile and quiet? I appreciate you again, and bye.
Thank you for calling, Andrea. I appreciate you as well. Do I like them docile? I mean, I don't like them under the influence of, Quaaludes or anything like that. I don't want a girl that you have to, when you get home, you got to take her out of the trunk and bring her in the house. So I like a girl, I don't mind a pigtail. I don't mind two pigtails. I remember this one girl only had one pigtail in my neighborhood because they only had one barrette at her house. And her and her sister got a set of barrettes for Christmas, but the set only come with two barrettes. And so they each got to use one. So they running around each looking like, half a Wendy's logo, because each one of them had that just one, that one that one braid riding out, like a diving board that was, taking the afternoon off, just kind of hanging off that side, ganging out. So I don't mind a little bit of braids. I like a hard-working woman. I don't want any of these. I need a teammate. I need a partner in crime. I like a woman that knows that life is hard work. I like a woman, for me, I think that has some semblance of idea or thoughts of there being some sort of a higher power. That doesn't have to be, they don't need to believe in Jesus Christ. They don't need to believe in, Muhammad or something, a specific deity or a specific liaison to a religion. But I need them to, I want them to believe that there's something greater out there than us. You know what I'm saying? I ain't freaking I ain't carrying around no atheist. I just can't, because for me that doesn't work. For some people it may, and that's okay if it works for you. But I don't want somebody, where every other day feels like Halloween around the house because they dark art. What else do I like? I dated a girl with a real small head one time. I wouldn't mind more of like a regular headed woman. I dated a girl who had this little pin top. Sometime when I was making out with her, I could kiss her and my hands would touch under her chin and on the top of her head at the same time. And she was an adult, obviously. But I remember just like, dang, she got that cabbage ball. And I started thinking, how many ideas could she even have in this hitter, on top of her neck? I was always scared somebody with a T-ball bat was just going to roll up and just, try to knock a double. Because she had that little baby, mediocre sphere. But she was a beautiful girl. I mean, I think she was probably she might have been the prettiest girl in New Orleans, but but who knows, man? Do I like, I like a woman that's a hard worker. I like a woman that's a hard worker. And I want a woman that can be a mother. I don't want one of these whiny ass ladies talking about, preaching all the time about, motherhood and this and that when they don't even have any children. I want a woman who doesn't mind having some children, and who doesn't mind having some children with me. I'm not looking for some housewife. My wife can have a job. My wife can be a CEO. My wife can be president of the United States. That's fine with me. But I would hope that if we can have children, that we have them. So that's something. What kind of ladies I like if I'm just thinking about being randy, I like, I remember when I was young, I dated, I like that kind of Native American looking type. Kind of girl, like if you saw her, if you walked by and she was wearing a little bit of, if you peeped in time, if you were peeking in her windows and she didn't know you were there, she might have had on those, that buffalo skin brassiere, or she might have had a couple of duck uteruses kind of woven in with some vine and holding up her breasts, just some lady that's really of the earth, that Native American kind of girl. If you're peeking in her window at night, you wouldn't be surprised if her dad freaking dropped that arrow right by your ear, parted your hair, just whoosh, and not to look at his daughter get, change clothes and stuff at night, even though you guys are in love with each other. So I think I had that kind of Pocahontas sort of thing that I kind of always maybe envisioned. And my mother, they say that you're attracted to some characteristics that your mother has. And my mother was kind of tall, dark, and handsome, I guess, in a way, but in a female way. My mother's a hard worker. The hardest working man I've ever known is my mother. And so I really admire that. I need, because I need a teammate, and I'm a lot to deal with. I know that. I'm really sensitive. I'm a sensitive person. And I get better at managing my sensitivity, but I need somebody who's got that, so, who's able to, who's able to deal with that. So, but also, I think it changes over time. Some things I start to see. One good thing about being, single as you get older and being able to kind of see how relationships shake out and stuff is that you notice like, oh, I'm glad I didn't go with that one, or I'm glad I didn't go with that one, or that I didn't go, but I'm glad that situation didn't work out, or that situation didn't work out because of this or because of that. You start to see like, oh, I see how that person goes that way, or how that type of person goes that way. You just get more view. So that's one thing that is kind of rewarding about being single as I get older, is being able to get a larger view of what's going on. But I've been fortunate enough to date some neat gals. I hope I haven't in my life. I don't know if I've ever mistreated any women or done anything like that. I think I've been afraid of commitment and those sorts of things, and so that probably hadn't been very helpful to some women. But those are some things that I like. And for me, if a woman's funny, that's beautiful to me. If a woman likes to play board games sometimes in the evening or in the afternoon, then I like that. I like a girl that doesn't mind, maybe doing like a silly dance or something, or doesn't mind like, looking silly sometimes, because those things inspire me. I'm always so afraid to like, it's kind of weird. I'm afraid to look silly. Like, I'm not afraid to tell jokes and say things that are silly, but I'm afraid physically sometimes to look silly. And so if there's a girl that kind of is comfortable with those sorts of things, then that makes me feel, I admire that, because I wish I could be that way. And then somebody that's understanding. I mean, fuck, I think I'm just describing things we all want. But that's some of my ideas, Andrea, and you sound like a beautiful young lady. And if I don't have somebody, or if you don't have somebody, then at the very least, we can still treat ourselves with romance. So once you get out there and put some put some of that tzatziki on your thighs, and treat yourself right. Light a candle and pour some wax on your neck or something. Or dip your shoulders in chocolate and lick it off. Do that side to side, that freaking nervous, with that nervous tongue, just hunting your freaking clavicle, hunting along your clavicle with that nervous tongue, just back and forth, just getting your own chocolate hits. Some beauty right there. Let's hear another call that came in right here, just kind of chiming into the conversation. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, this is Kara, the animal agent from New York.
Oh, yeah, Kara. Yeah, thank you for calling back, Kara, because I told you about them animals. And I knew a lady that lived out near Calabasas, and she had all these show animals. She had like the circus mouse from Green Mile. She had the dog from I Am Legend. She had the cat from Sabrina the Teenage Witch. She had a batch of snails from some famous movie. I don't know what it was, and I'd never seen their work. But onward.
Calling back again. You had asked for a little bit more information about my job, and so here it goes. So my job is totally awesome, as one would expect. I get to work with all different kinds of animals every single day.
Ooh, man, that's crazy, because you probably get to see animals that the rest of us don't even know about. That's a pretty fascinating. I've always wished that, that we had access to all the animals. Let's hear more.
I'm probably one of the few people in this country, at least, that absolutely loves their job.
Wow. Yeah, you sound excited. You sound excited about your job. Onward.
So a couple things that people would know that we have done in Practical Jokers, if anybody has seen that show, which I'm sure many of your listeners have.
Yep, Impractical Jokers. And I went on their cruise 2 years ago, and I met some great people on there. My girl Loretta and my boy Kevin out there and his brother. I met them by the Skill Crane, and they were alcoholics, and they now all make all my T-shirts. I met them on the Impractical Jokers cruise, and they're beautiful over there, and they got a brother named Tom who's taller than them and may or may not have the same parents. But anyhow, yes, I do know the Impractical Jokers, some of them, very special guys. And you had an animal that worked with them?
any animals that you've seen on that show, we have provided all of them. Some of my favorite moments and some of the ones that I can be seen in are the episode where Sal is delivering the cow, and also where we put the tarantulas on cue.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, Q is a sweetheart. Man, there's no, if you want to know about a group of guys, and if you don't know about them, the Impractical Jokers, right? And they are four of the just neatest men ever. And people, you might look at them and think, well, these guys just made up this silly show or this and that. But for 20 years, they had a group called the Tenderloins, and they kept working. And they pitched TV shows a couple of times, and almost there, and it didn't happen, and almost there, and it didn't happen. And then, boom, everything worked out the way that it was supposed to. And success couldn't happen to four better people who have put in the work. But I'm grateful to know them, and that makes me cool that you work with some beautiful show animals that are obviously humorous. If your animals are providing humor, because I'm sure some people are only doing, working with crows or working with ravens or vultures, or coyotes or animals that are doing more violence. Let's hear more.
That was me doing that. So a couple funny things that happen sometimes when we're on set. Usually it's the animal is having some kind of a bowel movement or... Oh,
that's duty. She talking. More?
An issue on set in that way, shape, or form. And it's, rarely, somebody's pet, dog, cat, something like that.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt this here. I appreciate you calling, Kara. Thank you so much. But this reminds me of a story. They had this man in my town named Icy Mike. And some people know about this. And I've told it before, I think, but he used to have different animal. He had, I might have told this last week, honestly. My brain is so bad. You got to know that about me. I don't have a good memory. And this man, Icy Mike, he would get water from different parts of America, and we would go, and he would freeze it. And we would go over to his house and eat the ice. Because a lot of us, we didn't travel. In my neighborhood, you were lucky to get to Florida once, by the time you were 17. So Icy Mike, he was getting water from, Georgia. He was getting water from, he had a couple of buckets come down from Missouri. He had like 6 gallons or something. Somebody sold him that was from Branson. I mean, this dude was getting water from some really neat places. And so he would freeze it, and we would go over there, and he would put it in those ice trays and stuff, or just do a big block. He'd put it in those ice trays and put the toothpicks in it, and after we freeze it, we'd go over there and eat it and talk about the area, and just fantasize and just be imaginative about, wonder what it was like, this water tastes like maybe they had skiers going through it, or, maybe they had like people having a picnic by the banks or whatever. We would just use our imaginations and think about the ice and to try and taste different realities that could have been nearby the water before it had come to us when it was in its natural habitat. And so anyhow, sometimes he would get a big, he'd just freeze it in a big chunk, and it would almost be like a luau. We just chip off pieces of ice and just, have a little bit of lake mead or, some, I don't know if you ever got anything for it, but he got some, I don't think he ever got any like Lake Titicaca or anything like that, but, he'd have the normal Lake Pontchartrain or something from, Lake Bourne, different stuff. But maybe from like Ontario, something like that. But anyhow, that was good stuff. We would have that. Well, Icy Mike, he took some acid one time because a lot of bad LSD would come through the South. And the kind of shit where, the next week, suddenly everybody's, everybody just kind of like people were wearing vests, I remember, or one time everybody bought a bunch of cowboy boots after some acid came through. So you were like, ooh. That kind of left people feeling a little bit country, or different things. You'd have people, some acid would come through, and next thing you know, everybody would be doing artwork in their yard or something. Just, shit where, the acid was kind of affecting everybody as a group. Well, Icy Mike got a couple bad hits, a couple of bad squares of that fucking paper magic. And he had this, he quit doing the ice. And he put all his money into livestock because his daddy had left him about $800 when he died. So he put all his money into livestock and he bought a bunch of cattle or large animals. One of them, I think, was a fat horse that had a bad, it had been, somebody had kind of scalped it. And so it didn't have like a tail, but it looked like a cow. But you know what I'm saying? Similar animals. And he fed them all a bunch of stuff and he was going to have them all poop at the same time. And this just goes back to your story a little bit, care about animal bowel movements, but where he was going to have them all shit at the same time. So he sold tickets around town. He had, he could seat about 40. He had some old bleachers out there. So we all going out there to watch the big shit, So everybody's fired up and people are drinking and everything. And some people even fucking out in the distance. And everybody's waiting for these animals all to shit at once. And you thinking to yourself, oh, that's creepy. I would never watch that. But right now you're still listening to the story and you're also thinking, man, I wonder how this went. So therefore you would watch that because your brain's still hanging around, isn't it? So, it's coming time where everybody's expecting, 8:45 or whatever, all these animals are going to bust out their asses and everything at the same time, kind of not really a fireworks, but, something exciting, almost a little bit biblical. But then next thing you know, one of the animals got scared, because I think a car alarm went off or something. Somebody had a Sunfire, one of those Sunfire cars. And basically, if you ever owned a Sunfire, I think it was like a Pontiac Sunbird or Sunfire. The only thing the car did was the battery would die and the alarm would go off. I don't even think you could drive them. The battery died and then the alarm would go off, which was ironic because you needed the battery to run the alarm. But those Sunfires, man, that's all. One of those went off anyhow. One of these animals, and I don't know what it was. It could have been something with a deformity. It could have been a giraffe with with Down syndrome. I don't know what was going on at the time but one of these animals took off and people were like, oh shit, this isn't good, And they had a man who had been in a war or who just owned artillery. Okay. And he had a grenade, a real grenade. And sometimes you hear about grenades and sometimes you don't. Well, this is a time when you hear about it. This man threw, I don't know if he had a flashback, like somebody was escaping, this was the enemy or something. And I've never even seen a cow run, but this cow was running, if it was a cow. And this man threw a fucking grenade, bruh. And from looking at this dude, and I know him, I won't say his full name, but first name, Gary, but spelled Gerry. So I'll give those clues if somebody from my town is listening. And some people called him Mr. Gary, and I never called him that. But anyhow, Gary threw this grenade. And I'm thinking, no way Gary's going to... He don't look like a man that's very accurate. And I'll be damn, boy, if Gary couldn't fucking start a barbecue from 300 feet away with a damn grenade. Fascinating. So, not cool. And I'm not the kind of guy who glorifies that kind of stuff. I don't think animal cruelty is good. This is before they had animal cruelty. This is 20 years ago when animals and humans were still fighting each other a lot and not seeing eye to eye. But that shit went off, boy. And so that's where I'm from. If you want to know where I'm from, that's where I'm from. So don't let people act like, oh, you from Heath. That's where I'm from. All right? But thank you for calling, young lady, and I'm sorry to get fired up. Let's hear another call.
Hey, Theo. My name is Avery, and I am an open mic comedian out of Detroit.
Avery, Detroit, man. And thank you for calling, dude, and God bless you guys, man. I know that, I can't even imagine what your state has been through in the past 20 years. I know it's probably been tough up there in Michigan and people having a tough time and this and that. And you guys are powerful and you guys persevere and keep your head up, keep your head up. I just can't imagine, when you have an industry in your city or in your neighborhood or in your town and your grandparents worked in it and maybe your father worked in it and suddenly that industry is disappearing and you don't know what to do and people don't know what to do. And then next thing you know, everybody's yelling at you because you're not living your life right. Well, what do you want me to do? I got 3 kids, and I live in this town already. I can't just up and move to, So I don't know. I didn't mean to get all into that shit, but thank you for calling, man. Onward.
Doing it about a year now, just starting out. Love listening to the podcast. Love the motivation of you trying to improve your life. And I heard your comments recently about masturbation, and I have some thoughts on it.
Well, thank you for calling, Avery. I do masturbation, and I'm trying. Onward.
And I actually do a little bit about it. Because I don't know whether masturbation's good or bad, because in the Bible it says it's bad and that you're not supposed to do it, but everybody says that it's not a big deal. But my thought is that the Bible is right about masturbation and that it is bad, because it's not about the devil or anything like that. It's bad because it satisfies you. So like if you're feeling bad and you want to feel good, you either have the option to go out and make your life better by doing the hard stuff, or you can just rub your dick and feel good right away.
That's true. And that's, and I've chosen that path many times, probably 20 or 30, 20, maybe 15,000 times rubbing my dick. I mean, like there's a damn genie in there. And you're right. We put these things in, or I do. I'm not going to say we. And I don't know you, but you're sharing some of this stuff. I put things in my way that anything I can put in my way to prevent me from having to deal with myself and make myself a better person or to get better, I will do it. It could be a cigarette. It could be masturbation. It could be looking at pornography. It could be, doing some mild peeping Toming from far away but safe distances. And I don't do that anymore. So I don't even think I'm out there like that. But, over time when I look back in my life, anything I could do instead of having to sit there and be with myself. Anything I could do. And some people say, you're so restless. Yeah, I was restless, but I didn't want to. I was afraid. I didn't want to wrestle with what was really making me feel. I didn't want to wrestle with, why do you want to go, do something? Why do you want to act out right now? Why do you want to go jerk off or, smoke or do something, or why do are you not okay right now? And I didn't want to answer that question. Why am I not okay? I didn't want to answer that. Instead, I just wanted to find something else to do so that I could keep putting that question off. But now I'm at a point in my life where I choose to try and answer it. And I don't have the answer, but, more shall be revealed, I find. The more efforts even if they're little efforts I make to treat myself better and to take care of myself, more is constantly revealed. Constantly. And I never thought that would be possible. But thank you for calling, Avery, and good luck out there. And it weakens you. Because I used to do this. I would meet a girl if I liked her. And then instead I would get scared to go meet up with her and just anxiety. I would jerk off. And the next thing you know, I would text her or call her and cancel the date. And then I'd be so tired from jerking off or whatever, because I do big jerks. I'd be so tired from doing those big jerks that I would be too exhausted to even go out or do anything. And so now I'm just alone by myself. And then that being alone starts to, and I said this last week, I think it's like a moss. It's like a moss that grows in the dark. The more you stay inside and the more you be alone, that grows on itself. This is real information. You can go look at this shit. Or you can just, if you're living this, you can ask yourself and you'll feel that it's true. And I'm not accusing anybody but I've been there. I spent probably 8 years running in that same circle. Just not taking care of myself and then feeling bad for not taking care of myself. And back and forth. Just like it was an ocean. Like the tide would go in and the tide would go out. And I wouldn't take care of myself. And then I'd feel bad for not taking care of myself. And that was it. That was my life. But not anymore, boy. Not anymore. All right, we're going to get into a couple calls here that, we have the contest every month that we just started. This is our first month where we give away one of those Correctional Center Blue This Past Weekend t-shirts. And I'll put one up tonight on the This Past Weekend Instagram. And if you're not following that feed, you can follow it at This Past Weekend _ I believe it is. And And whoever calls in, you got to hit the hotline, 985-664-9503, and you have to leave a message. It needs to be 60 seconds or less telling me about your weekend and why it was great or why it was horrible. Now, don't call in every week. Call in when you have a good one, because we got a whole box of these correctional center blue shirts. We're going to send them out, and they gutter. They gutter. Dude, I wouldn't put an ugly baby in one of these things, but, you know, I wouldn't start a fucking fire with one of them. If I was going to kill myself in my garage by starting up a car and putting something in the tailpipe, I would use this shirt. But we're going to give one of them away. This is coming in on the end of the first month, and we got a couple of final contestants here that called in. Here we go.
Hey Theo, this is Max. I want to share my past weekend with you.
Thanks for calling, Max. And I have a nephew named Maximus, and he's a special kid. Onward.
Me and 3 of my buddies, we did the magic mushrooms.
Oh boy, y'all got that fungus in your brain, huh? Ooh, tickle you. Let's hear more.
We were watching Finding Nemo.
Damn, boy, this shit got homoerotic in a motherfucker, bruh. You know? And maybe everything just gets gay to me, dude. Maybe I have something going on. Onward.
On the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 3 has a button on it that it's called like repeat the scene button. So it repeats like a 5-minute scene over and over. Well, I'm tripping on the mushrooms. I accidentally stepped on a remote, hit the repeat scene button.
Wow. I can already see where this is going, man, but I want to hear you tell me.
So after, about watching the same 5-minute scene probably 15 times, we all are tripping and being like, dude, we just watched a 2-hour movie probably, like 15, 20 times. Like, we must have been down here for like 2 or 3 days. So we all thought we were down there for days, son, watching Finding Nemo. We thought we stayed up for like literally 3 days straight watching Finding Nemo.
That's heavy, man. And that sounds like, honestly, a place where a couple dudes would end up fucking, to be honest with you. And guys who don't usually fuck, but would. And I'm not accusing you guys or saying anything, but, when you got 3 dudes, and suddenly, people forget the movie's still going, and the next thing you know is 2 days later, and everybody comes up out of the basement. Somebody gonna be smelling like ass usually. But thank you for calling, man, and I'm glad you guys had fun on those mushrooms. But you got to get outdoors in the future. Unless you guys are in cold weather, somebody could die out there on mushrooms, because mushrooms will warm your body up. You think you're warm, and next thing you know, you die of whatever it is, emphysema or something from being in the snow. Thank you for calling, though, and that was an interesting weekend. Let's hear one more right here.
Hey, Theo, this is Andrew from Deadwood, South Dakota. And a lot of people know what dead and wood mean separately. But Deadwood is a place where old cowboys used to get shot. Anyway, they have a big party every St. Patty's Day. And my brother came down from college. This past weekend we went gambling and we went partying and drinking. No drugging. But it was really good because I hadn't seen him in a while.
Oh, that's nice. I'm glad you got to spend some time there with your sibling. More?
And we got out during the day. It was a beautiful day on Friday, and we went rock climbing. And then,
damn, y'all active. Y'all brotherhood is really active. My brother and I, we barely get over to the Pizza Hut. More?
And then it snowed a ton on Saturday.
Damn, and this shit's starting to lead to romance, too. You notice how a lot of these boys' things be leading to romance, boy? Let's hear more. Thank you.
To go up snowboarding. Deadwood's up in the mountains of South Dakota. And so it was a really good time, and I really enjoyed seeing my brother. My dog just died, and so I've been, kind of lonely. I moved here by myself, and so it was a really, really special weekend just to kind of grow it up and see him. So.
Oh, man, I appreciate you calling and saying that, dude. That's nice. I'm glad you and your brother got to spend some time together, man. It's and it sounded like you made the most of it. And that's something I want to do more in my life is just, I want to try and make the most of this time because I get caught in the same habits. Oh, okay, well, let's just stay in and watch the tube, or let's, I'll just eat the same thing. I'll just have this same macaronis. I'll just have I'll just get a pear and just cut this pear up and have another pear. But sometimes, you got to be adventurous, and you got to get up early and and you got to make your life, you got to add spice to it. And it doesn't, you got to add, I hate to say it, man, but you got to go back to that romance. You got to go back to that romance. That's what it is. You got to add that romance to your life. And it doesn't even have to be in a sensual way or in anything. But you and your brother, you decided to put some type of a feeling into your day. Some type of an action, some type of you guys went rock climbing, you went snowboarding. Jesus, man, if my brother and I went and did that, one of our fucking legs would fall off. But you made it, you got active. And that is, that's the kind of thing that'll keep us out of the dark arts, is staying active. Because otherwise, you out there like me and Avery out there in Detroit, jerking off and wondering, how Eminem just seems so different than he did 20 years ago. You just don't know. It's wild, man. But you out there, you're making your life, you're adding romance to your life. And I appreciate that, Andrew. I appreciate you calling. It sounded like a great weekend you had. So those are 2 weekends that came in, and those are contestants. And I know the winner right here. And I'm going to play it for you right now. You heard it before, but here it is.
Hey, Theo. This is Nate from Massachusetts. Just calling to share the best weekend I had in a long, long time. I got to spend a beautiful, sunny, late winter Saturday out on the ice fishing with my 6-year-old son and both of his granddaddies. By the time I was old enough to remember them, half my grandparents had passed on, and by then the other half maybe didn't have time to go out and spend a whole day out on the ice with a youngster.
There you go. And that's going to be it, man. There was more to that call, but I'm going to shut it down there. That's Nate. Nate's going to get that blue Correctional Center blue hitter. And we'll send that to you, Nate. We'll hit you up over text. And thank you for that call, man. I'm glad you and your boys got to get out there on that frozen tundra. Because a lot of people, when the story is, you hear when people go out onto the ice with senior citizens, it's like a lot of Italian shit. Somebody gets gunned down. It's mafioso style. So to know that you guys are in a family atmosphere out there enjoying one another's company, no big debts to pay off and nobody, getting revenge or anything for a previous issue, or, some super Italian activity. Beautiful. So, Nate, you got that Correctional Center blue hitter. We'll send that to you. Last week, on the last episode, I talked about, going to therapy and struggling with whether or not I want to go to my therapist. Oh, I got to tell you this, too. My boy, last week we talked about, he sent me these candles, and I got them lit right in here. And these are root beer. And it's a nice man, dude. It's the candle man, he said. He sent me this note, and I couldn't open them last week because the packaging was, there's just too much stuff in there. I was going to get all over all the little shards of paper and just thing like that. But he sent me these, man, and I'm going to put a link to them. I just really appreciate it. They're nice candles. And candle make me relax, man. It's crazy. If you're in a big fire will make you get your laptop, get your animal, get out the house, get your baby book or whatever, and get a couple thing of jewelry and get out the house. But a little candle, a little fire make you feel comfortable. So really a lot of our comfort in life is based on how much fire is around. I noticed that. But yeah, he has some beautiful candles right there. I'm going to put a link to them below. Joey Piedmont, handmade upcycled container candles. And I'll put a link to his, he have an Etsy shot on a Facebook page. But it's a Hangover Candle. And you can check them out at Hangover Candle. And they're nice, and I appreciate that nice gift, man. It helps me feel relaxed here in the new studio. Here we go. I go to therapy, and sometimes I feel like not going. And I feel like not going. We talked about it last week, or I did that. I just don't, I get that thing. It's like, you don't need to go. You don't need to go. This ain't helping you anymore. This ain't helping you anymore. And we had this call that came in about some advice about therapy. Here we go.
Hi, Theo Vaughn. Hi, so I've called you before, and I had some advice for you because I'm getting ready to go to my shrink right now.
Okay, you about to shrink out more?
It took me a while to decide to go see one, and once I did and found someone I really liked, I see now why it's valuable. It took me a while to figure out what the point of rehashing, like, painful bullshit could possibly be, but whatever, that's everybody's own journey. But I do have some advice. When you feel like you don't want to go there, when you don't want to go see your therapist, generally, here's what I do. I say, I don't want to talk about it. That's generally why I don't want to go see her.
Okay, and we got this call right here on that topic.
Hi, Theo Vaughn. Hi, so I've called you before, and I had some advice for you guys. When you feel like you don't want to go there, when you don't want to go see your therapist, generally, here's what I do. I say, I don't want to talk about it. That's generally why I don't want to go see her.
Yeah, that's true. That's what I don't want to go. Well, my brain will say, oh, you're too busy. You got too much going on. You don't have time. Those sorts of things will be some of the excuses that will come into my head. But let's hear more.
And then I ask myself, what don't you want to talk about? And there's inevitably a huge list of shit I do not feel like talking about. And that is absolutely what I'm paying her to listen to.
Amen. That's a great little, for some, that's a great little thing that could help you. You're thinking about not going to a therapist. You're thinking, why don't I want to go? What don't I want to talk about? I can answer for you. What don't I want to talk about with my therapist? I don't want to talk about that I don't like her sometimes. Sometimes she makes me feel uncomfortable, but it's such few moments that to compare to the weight of the times that I've felt helped, that it doesn't even compare. But that's one thing that could pop into my head, and that will sometimes. What else? I don't want to talk about, that I'm afraid of commitment. I don't want to talk about the fact that, I'm afraid to get married and have a family because, I might ruin it. I don't want to talk about, the fact that I feel sometimes that by living in Los Angeles, that I'm like letting my family down because they don't get to see me very much. And it's crazy because the same things that, what brought me out here sometimes in the beginning or made me want to chase some of these dreams I have was feeling like there was nothing holding me back because I didn't have any real family. And then now my family's changed so much over the years that now I feel that, I'm letting them down by being here. And I know some of that's not true, but it's still, or just that I'm, not taking advantage of what's most important. So those are some things, maybe that I don't want to talk about. Why wouldn't I want to go? Because I wouldn't want to say those things. I wouldn't want to tell somebody that. I wouldn't want to tell somebody that, that part of me is worried that I'll be alone forever. And not because somebody won't love me or won't care about me, but because I won't let them. That I won't really do the work to let them. But thank you for your call. Let's hear another call or two that came in real quick. Here we go.
Theo. It's your boy Roel from Houston, Texas.
Roel, thank you for calling.
There's a thing off of YouTube from Jocko Willink. It's called Good.
Jocko Willink, yes. Tell me more.
And there's an excerpt I like to read. And it says, if you can say the word good, guess what? It means you're still alive. It means you're still breathing. And if you're still breathing, well then hell, you still got some fight left in you. So get up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage, and go out on the attack. Theo.
Wow.
Your boy Roel from Houston, Texas.
There you go. And he said right there that if you can say the word good, then you got some fight left in you. That's a nice moniker too to go by. And so you need to get out there and go out on the attack. And I do believe that if you want this world, if you want this shit, you gotta stay on it. You have to stay on it. You have to have your plan, and you gotta work towards it. You gotta move forward. And you can let yourself go here and there. You can let yourself down sometimes, but we need to have a plan long term to keep ourselves up. And if you can't find it, then ask somebody who has one. It's amazing how much people are willing to help other people. I will never, ever be surprised by the kindness in humans. Never be surprised, man. Like old Blanche, what's her name, said in Streetcar Named Desire, I've always depended upon the kindness of strangers. And that's true for me as well. Thank you for calling, Raul. Here we go. We got this call came in. This fella looking for some suggestions and guidance. Here we go.
Yo, what up, Theo? It's your boy Chris Jones in Atlanta.
What's up, Chris Jones? And they had a boy when I grew up named Chris Jones, named Toby. His nickname was Toby. You know, like a piece of your foot, but different. And he was always kind of a nice and wild kid who lived in my area. You know, he kind of had he had a little bit of danger in him. You know, he had that squirrel. He always had like a fucking, you know, kind of a squirrel living in his neck a little bit. He was ready to go, you know? More?
I was calling, I was just thinking, because I just had, my wife and I had our first son.
Congratulations, brother. Thank you.
Hank Jones, and had him on March 19th, which is your birthday, I know, which Hank Jones, and had him on March 19th, which is your birthday, I know.
That's my birthday, man. I appreciate it. I'm happy to share it with your boy. And when I leave this earth, he'll probably still be around to carry it on. So I appreciate you sharing that. More?
Which super awesome as far as I'm concerned. Had the same birthday as Theo Vaughn.
Well, I'll tell you this. We both have the same birthday as Dr. Seuss. And his name is Theodore Giesel. And he was born on March 19th. So I think that's somebody that's way more interesting. But that's pretty cool as well as your boy. More?
But anyway, my question is, before that, I had a daughter and a wife. And ever since we came home with the boy, now it's kind of even the penis to vagina ratio in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been nothing outward, but I feel that silently there's been a turning of the attitude on the female part.
Well, yeah. Yeah, man, because they see they got more cocks in the kennel. You know what I'm saying? If you cock up a kennel, bruh, you know, then Vegeta's gonna get wild. They're gonna get scared. And that's normal, man. That's nature. You know, a lot of times we don't realize, and I'm not saying you don't realize, but a lot of times we have to remember that nature's doing we're just little pieces of nature. You know, we're just pawns and rooks, and we might think we're kings and queens, but we're pawns and rooks. And Mother Nature have this bigger thing going on. Mother Nature could send a meteor, and it's a wrap. Okay? I don't care how many Instagram followers we got or how many new Dodge Caravans we own or are leasing. It's a wrap. And, you know, somebody was telling me the other day, and this could just be hearsay, I don't know. But somebody was telling me that if there is when things start to get kind of wild in the universe, that more women will be born. When there's more stress in an area or in a country, that more females will be born. And that's crazy, man. Because the world knows that it needs more motherhood and more pacificity, and it needs more that ability to understand. I think that is innately built into a woman, or most women. Now, there's some American women out here that are trying to really test that shit, that are trying to go against Mother Nature, and I don't know how that's going to work sometimes in the end. But I think that there's Mother Nature has a plan. You know, we got to believe that, I think. And that's probably all that's going on you got over there. You know, it's just like Father Time and Mother Nature just moving their rooks and pawns around, and they just added another little rook to your game set over there. Let's hear another call there, but I appreciate... Oh, you had a question. Let me hear what the question is.
And I'm wondering You ever had any experience with that? Your thing where, you know, the girls are outnumbered and they put out a different vibe, but then once, you know, you kind of even up that teen to vagine ratio.
No, I've never. I don't know much about that. I did hear though that if a lot of girls ride together on a bus or something for a long distance, that all their periods will line up, and they will do that. You know, kind of sort of the same thing that Icy Mike was trying to put on. You know, they were trying to put that big vulation. You know, they're trying to put that big ovulation at one point. You know, there's that big outgoing tide all of a sudden at one point. So I heard that if girls ride like a couple hours on I don't want to say a school bus or a Greyhound. Yeah, not a school bus because we're talking about adults. But on a Greyhound or on a bus, then they will all have the same period schedule. But thank you for calling, man. I wish I knew more. Here we go, Pat.
Theo, what's up? My name's Pat. I'm from Cleveland. I'm 34. I started listening to this past weekend probably 4 weeks ago. I listened to all of them, and now I'm listening to Allegedly, so pretty big fan.
Thank you, Pat. And John Huertas from This Is Us is on the Allegedly episode that's on right now. I'll put up a picture of that on my Instagram to remind people. Thank you for calling, Pat. You sound down in the dumps, Brosy. What's up?
I got a question. I'm a painter. I got a couple of kids and a wife, and it's been pretty rough the past, I'd say 2 months. I just bought a house, and, you know, it might have been a little out of reach for me. Just had to borrow money from my father. Anyways, I really freaking hate my job.
So it sounds like you definitely have some new stress going on, man. I'm sorry to hear that. You know, I know that's a scary moment when you get something new and you have that new lease milling about. You got the family too. That is a fixed cost at this point because you can't. I mean, that's a fixed cost emotionally and fiscally because you can't adjust that. You had to borrow some money for your father. I'm sure that can be. I don't know y'all's relationship, but it might come with some extra feelings of weakness or inferiority that may accompany that move, depending upon your relationship with your dad. Onward.
And like I said, I'm 34, and I'm not sure what I even want to do and how to go back to college or even if I'm smart enough or whatever. I know I sound like a bitch right now, but
that's okay, man. We all bitches, bruh. More?
Just looking for any advice on kind of just trying to start over and be able to, you know, support my family at the same time.
Well, you know, I don't have a lot of suggestions in that world, and some other people might, you know, and they can hit the hotline 985-664-9503 about starting over and about switching moves. And, you know, I think a little bit, you're going to maybe hate to hear this, but it sounds like, and I don't even know if I could do it, but it sounds like, you know, I mean, you got to man up. You got to man up. You know, yeah, you could. I mean, you could take some classes and try to ease into school, try a night course or try a class here and there. You can do that. You know, that's highly plausible. But I mean, first and foremost, you know, you have to make sure you have income coming in. You know, you have to create a schedule where you're going to be paying your stepdad back, or your father back, even if it's, you know, a little bit or whatever. You want to stick to that schedule so that doesn't get weird. You know, you want to keep that family thing in line at first. And then if you can add another log to the fire, you know, to see if you can to burn in a new direction, then you can do that. But it's going to take some extra, I hate to say it, man, because you don't want to hear it, but it's going to take some extra work. But in the meantime, look, I commend you. You know, like, I'm 37, dude. I don't have a family. You know? I mean, you tell me, you know, you got a family, and that makes me feel envious. You know, you come home and you got people, you know, you got something with little arms that runs up to you. That's not a gremlin, and it wants to hug you. And that, to me, that's beautiful. So you have some really cool gifts, it seems like. You know, you get to paint, man. You get to paint. And I don't know if you're damn Picasso or you're fucking Petey's Paint Service. I don't know which one you are. But I love my job. People say that all the time, but it is a job. In the end, this is a job, man. I mean, podcasting has been something different. This is different, but going to comedy, it's a job. It was great when I started, and it's still a lot of fun, and there's a lot of times where I really enjoy it. But you still have to get up and go there. You still have to fly to Nevada or wherever, or, a different state, some other place. And you got to do it. You still got to do your job. I still have to do that. So work is work. It is what it is. In a few years, your industry might change and you don't know what the next thing is. If you never know whose house you might be painting one day, and then they notice your work ethic or your attitude, and they bring you into the fold with something amazing that they're doing. I'm going to tell you this, man. When I've been doing comedy about 8 years, I was real scared. And I was kind of in love with this girl in Louisiana. And so I went back there for about 6 months, and I had to get a job. And I got a job at a taco place. This place was making kind of decent tacos, medium, not upscale, not them upscale hitters, but medium hitters. And I had to bartend. I was bartending. I never bartended anything. But they had a smoothie machine that had alcoholic smoothies, margaritas. That's what they were. And I would just make those and slang these, tacos to people. And one night I'm sitting there, I'm washing glasses, and I was, at the same time, I had comedy that was on Comedy Central. It had just popped off, But that wasn't paying my bills. That wasn't taking care of me. So here I was back in Louisiana, and I'm renting a house with my sister, and they got strippers coming over and stealing the vacuums and shit. And I'm out here, and there's a man sitting there one night, and he starts telling me about this piece of property. And next thing you know, man, fast forward 4 months, I owned one of the hottest pieces of property in Louisiana. Now I got into a weird scenario with some friends, and, I didn't really make the best choices, and, it was, you shouldn't do business with friends sometimes. And I lost the property, right? But by being there and sitting there and washing those glasses and showing up to work and just taking on some humility, dude, I'm sitting there, I was on television, which I know it doesn't mean anything to a lot of people, and that's fine. But to be sitting there, you're on TV and you the fucking, and you're washing people's glasses and shit, that's life. That's fucking life. And to be able to do that, and then that's when something beautiful can come along. And I still have to remind myself of that all the time, is that, if every day I got to find some way to humble myself and to do my job. But yeah, man, if you show up and it sounds like your perspective and you're in a tough spot, you got a lot going on. So I would just take care of yourself right now. I would make sure you get some rest when you can. I would make sure you're eating. I would make sure you're doing something athletic a little bit, even if it's trying to do a little jog or something to keep your blood flowing and keep your spirit happy and keep your heart healthy. And if you can try to just adjust your perspective, then maybe what you have going on right now might be everything you want. Because to me, dude, honestly, in some ways, you sound like a rich dude. You know what? I used to love to sweep the porch, man. When I was growing up, man, I hated where we lived. I hated feeling poor. I hated all the shame that I felt every day when I woke up. But one thing I loved to do was sweep the porch. Because when that thing was done, boy, that thing was done. And I worked on a farmhouse over there in Natchez, Mississippi, outside of there near Vidalia, over near off of the levee. And then they let me paint the farmhouse one summer. And man, I felt achievement. So, we all have a little things, and maybe, you won't paint forever. But right now, try and just, if you show up to paint and you're fired up about it, the brush going to be lighter, the color's going to be brighter, And when somebody, you never know who you're going to pass across. Things change a lot, and change can be waiting for you. But you got to put yourself in a position. You might not have to take that class. You might not have to go back to school, or you might. But, you know, you get a little bit lighter in your brain, I bet that you are going to get, you're going to have more room inside of yourself for clarity for what could best occur. And of course, I do not know, man. I don't know anything, but that's something that I would maybe try, you know. All right, one more thing here, and then we'll be done, man. Here we go.
What up, Theo? This is Justin from Mass, man. I'm just calling to remind you, son. You said you were going to drop a new clip on the YouTube channel when you hit that 30,000 the subscribers. And you're up about 31 now. So, you know, you owe the gang a clip, son.
You're right, Jesse. I do. And you know what? I tried to record it over there in Tacoma, and I got to look at the tapes. I haven't had an opportunity yet. But I promised YouTube followers when we got to 30,000 that I would put the clip up. And Jesse, I appreciate you holding me accountable to that. And I will do it. If the clip is good, because I do want to put it up in a format where it's, you know, best serves the material. So I'm going to try to get that up. If the tapes that I got over there in Tacoma were good, then I will get this up. And if not, then I will get it up really, really soon. I appreciate that call, Jesse. As always, you know, you can hit the hotline 985-664-9503. If you have any thoughts or suggestions or anything like that, you know, this show is going to change all the time. You know, we don't know what it is sometimes, and we're still figuring it out. And I'm hoping to have a guest coming up soon. And what else? Well, that's an email. On the way out, man, I'm going to play this again. This is by Jameson Flood, and I appreciate you guys being here with me tonight. Take care of yourselves. We may have a Thursday episode. It depends. Trying to get this guest in. If not, I know you guys have Easter. This is Easter week, you know, heading into Good Friday. And, you know, try and celebrate. Try and, you know, life can be heavy sometimes, but we have the option of how much we want to feel the weight. You know, sometimes we have a little bit of room there where we can just not feel it so much, you know. But find some romanticism in your life this week, whether you got to tell yourself you love you, whether you got to tell your higher power that you love them, you know, whether you got to hug a kid or whether you got to paint, you know, less fuck on the side of somebody's house. Whatever you got to do, like my boy Pat out there. But thank you guys for your support. Let's keep it romantic. Let's keep it romantic, huh? And I'll see you guys either Thursday or I'll see you next Monday. You guys be good to yourselves. This is Jameson Flood with Every Night.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Kite, and welcome to Kite Club, a podcast where I'll be sharing thoughts on things like current events, stand-up stories, and 7 ways to pleasure your partner. The answer may shock you. Sometimes I'll interview my friends. Sometimes I won't. And as always, I'll be joined by the voices in my head.
You have 3 new voice messages.
A lot of people are talking about Kite Club. I've been talking about Kite Club for so long, longer than anybody else. So great.
Hey, sweetheart, here's the deal. Anyone who doesn't listen to Kite Club is a dodgy bloody wanker. Do you know what I mean?
Hi, I'll take a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry.
Sorry, sir, but our ice cream machine is broken.
Oh, no!
I think Tom Hanks just butt dialed me. Anyway, first rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Second rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Third rule, like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube, yeah? And yes, don't worry, my Brad Pitt impression will get better.
It's spring cleaning time. It's time to change the game. Time to flip the script. Who's this, Henry? Nah, it's Cheryl, bitch. We're gonna try something different. I challenge you. Have you ever broken into somebody's house to install an alarm? You ever left cookies out for your stalker? Quit thinking about yourself. You ever GHB'd somebody at the club, brought them back to your place, and just made them breakfast? Ooh, is that waffles? That's right, nothing naughty, nothing nasty. We about to forge a new path. Let's get into it. This is This Past Weekend. This past weekend. Come on with me. You got to come on up. You got to hold on. You got to hold on, man. That's Alabama Shakes right there. That's Alabama Shakes with the song Hold On. And I got the Shakes in Alabama one time, man. I was out there in Pelham, Alabama, and I'd been out there with some other young gentlemen who I knew from childhood, and we'd been out there doing drugs. We were on drugs, on basically, I think, some ecstasy pills, to be honest with you, and we got caught up, and I just remember seeing this band, Widespread Panic, and I mean, I just felt full. I felt just like a bunch of damn doves had just climbed into my veins and were just making my heart beat with their wings, man. I felt just equipped with the spirit, but that could have been the drugs for sure. But I got the Shakes out there. I remember after that show, I laid out in a parking lot of a Hampton Inn, which is basically just a traveler's motel, really. And I smoked a pack of menthol cigarettes by myself, laying on my back, looking up at the stars. If there were stars, hell, it could have been cloudy, dude. It was BYOS at that point. I mean, I was pretty much leaking feelings, and I had the Shakes a little bit, man. And I remember just wondering what my life was going to be like, and then the next day I went and stalked one of my ex-girlfriends for a little while. So anyway, good to see you guys, man. It is a Monday, March 27th, and it is the year 2017, and that was Alabama Shakes with a little bit of Hold On, because sometimes you got to hold on, you know? Sometimes you hit you'll hit a moment where you got to hold on. You can't let go, man. Whether you white knuckling it, you know, and you holding on, you know, and just making your own foundation, or if you holding on to somebody else, or if you're holding on just to an invisible power out in the universe, you know, sometimes you got to hold on. I just got back from Madison, Wisconsin, and that's white people country. You know, it's actually about 85% Caucasian, healthy. A lot of healthy people up there. A lot of thighs. It's really kind of a lot of brontosaurus type builds, you know, just solid, hardy, heavy hearts up there. Probably got 9 aortas on them up there in Wisconsin. Friendly, a lot of friendly people. You can feel when they shake your hand that they care a little bit, you know, and you can feel that, you could feel it up there. And I enjoyed it, man. I was at Comedy Club on State, and I want to thank everybody who came out, and we had a blast, man. We sold out a couple of shows, and everybody came and enjoyed themselves. And I enjoyed myself, man. I really did. I had a nice time out there just being in the town of Madison. It's a pretty liberal area, but it has like a lot of conservative values. I really think it's a nice, it's kind of progressive conservative, I feel like. And I feel like it's on a great track, that town of Madison, Wisconsin. It rained a little too, so caught a little free water there. And that was nice. Good to be here. Thank you guys for joining us this past weekend. What else, man? We'll get into the news. I'll chop into the news. I don't catch the news that much, but this weekend I absorbed some. The healthcare bill, it didn't pass, and on a lot of these news networks, they were just really beating apart the politicians or whatever that were putting it together. I just hope that they figure one out that does pass, that does work for everyone. I mean, it's a tough issue. I don't really have a million thoughts on politics, but when it comes to healthcare, I feel like it's almost inhumane if I don't feel like everyone deserves to be well or deserves to feel taken care of, especially in America where, I'm not a bookkeeper, but I'm sure if you got down to the brass tacks, we could find a way to afford it. But then you got a lot of people that don't take care of themselves, and so that's really the other side of the issue. Like, if somebody's just laying in the park all day shooting heroin and they don't care about their lives, but you're taking somebody's tax money who does care, I can understand why some people would think differently, so I certainly see the different perspectives. But I hope we find one that, that works for everybody, I really hope we do. And I don't know if there's a way, I don't really know, but it does bug me sometimes, that some of the news stations just, I don't know if they really seem interested in finding a way as much as they do just beating apart the people that are trying to figure it out. I just don't think the news is as helpful as it could be sometimes. When it comes to like political issues, healthcare is super important. Everybody needs a Band-Aid or a lung. Hell, I'll probably blow through something. I had a sister that was born with a bad liver. She only had about a quarter liver in her, and so she needed a liver transplant early. And I know that if it weren't for the healthcare system, we wouldn't have had that organ, And she's a little chatty, I'll admit that, but she's alive, and so I'm grateful to the systems that made that happen. In another country that might not have happened, might not have had my sister, So anyway, that's just my little personal thought on that. I think we got a lot of issues, man. If I were a political official, there are some things I would do, man. I'd have a neighbor day, where we find out who's in America. Because I feel like we don't know who's here. Kind of like roll call. Remember roll call when you were in the 3rd grade or the 7th grade or whatever? Whenever they finally checked on who was attending, and they would just call your name. I think they should do that. It's just a day where, everybody meets their neighbor, Everybody go out in the street and let's see who lives around you. Let's get a head count, And if somebody doesn't come out in the street, then they're creepy as fuck, dude. And maybe we need to keep tabs on them, Because if they don't want to be mingling a little bit, then that's, something's up. Something's awry, That's kind of like a political thing that pops in my head sometimes. If that's even political, I don't even know. It's just something that I would think would be pretty neat. Outside of that, another issue that sits on my heart sometimes is education reform, I just don't feel like we teach children skills that can really help them, like how to interact with one another, how to know if your friend is having a tough time, how to cheer somebody up if they're not doing well, I mean, I know it sounds like kind of some pretty gay shit, but I mean, I feel like those are things we could be teaching kids, I don't really care if Lamont knows about social studies, but I do care if he understands that one of his friends is maybe getting abused at home or something, and he can recognize it, you know? I just feel like we could teach kids acceptance. We could teach kids, you know, how to love one another. I just feel like we could do a little bit better job of education reform in that sense. Just teaching people how to care, you know? I don't think you should be able to graduate the 5th grade until you're not racist. How about that? That'd be a great class, you know? Or until you realize what it means to be a contributing member of society, you know? I just feel like there's a lot of things we could really be teaching children that's not factual, you know, that's more instinctual and more, you know, more of the heart, I guess. And that's just a thought of mine. You know, I'm not trying to push my beliefs on anybody. I'm just, I guess, sharing whatever's in my brain. Another thing I've wondered is if people who have served in the military, if their vote shouldn't count for more than those who haven't. You know, like maybe their vote counts for 1 1/4 votes. And that might sound crazy to some people, but, you know, I think it would certainly teach us all to have a different respect for our military. I mean, if somebody puts their ass on the line, I feel like they should get a little more, you know, and maybe it's just they, you know, get better packages when they're finished. But I just think that would be interesting if their vote counted for more than those of us who haven't served. And I haven't served. You know, it's one thing I regret a lot. I mean, I wasted a few years of my life, surely, you know, just probably spraying out and thinking about owning animals and, you know, chasing trim around and, you know, all kinds of just void fillers, you know, where I probably could have sacrificed some of my time and got out there and into the bazooka trade, you know, or whatever else they're doing, knife fighting, everything. So anyway, those are some things that popped into my head. Another news piece, Pizzagate, if you guys are familiar, but Pizzagate is basically Italian food and child molestation have joined forces in Washington, D.C., I believe it is. And it's something where there's, you know, politicos and fancy pants people getting together in the middle of the night to do child molestation at a pizza place. And that seems to me like bullshit. I'm going to have to go ahead and throw that out there because, I mean, I've spent a lot of time around Italians and they kiss, you know, they'll kiss you on the neck. The men will kiss you on the neck sometimes. If you're at the racetrack, I'll see them sometimes kissing each other if their horses win and getting excited. And, you know, they eat for a long time and look at each other in the eyes and stuff and drink wine. And I get what's going on. They're real loving, but I don't think that's going to lead to them loving a child so much that they're molesters. So that's why that whole story to me just seems like a bag of cat's bottoms, you know, if you really look at that. If you want to find some child molesters, dude, go to a poor neighborhood. You know, I think your interests are better looking around there. I mean, in a lot of wealthy neighborhoods, they have these HOA programs or these HOA groups, which are homeowners association that can make rules about who can live in the neighborhood and who cannot. So a lot of fancy neighborhoods can keep pedophiles out. So pedophiles, they're stuck at the gates, you know, and unless they got long arms, they're not going to be able to reach the children, you know, of the rich. But now I grew up in a poor neighborhood, you know, and I'm not trying to say that that's anything special or that I'm better than anybody because of that, but we had surely some couple touchers by us, you know, and we used to play kickball with two adult touchers. These men, I'll tell you this, they had a law in Louisiana. That's where I'm from. They had a law there in Louisiana, and that's one of the big 50 states, and where if you were a registered sex offender, that means you were, you know, part of the union, I guess, and that you had to go door to door and knock on the door and tell the people in the home, in your neighborhood. You had to go door to door in your neighborhood and let people know that you are a pedophile, right? Well, in our neighborhood, it was all single parent families, and half the parents worked. So us kids, we were home alone all the time. So you'd have these touchers coming to the door, knocking and saying, I have to let you know that I'm a registered sex offender. Is your mother home? And we'd be like, we were children. We're like, she's not home right now, which is baffling in hindsight, because then you got a pedophile standing right there with his desserts, really. And that was a law in Louisiana that you had to do that. Thankfully, once you know who the pedophiles are, the game changes, A lot of, these pedophiles and touchers, it's when you don't know who they are that they can practice their art, But so we knew. We used to play kickball with these two guys, Mr. Daniel. I don't remember the other guy's name. He was kind of swampy looking, didn't really take care of himself. But we played kickball with him. And Mr. Daniel, this one dude he was combing his hair all the time. He'd comb his hair 9 times in a minute. Like he was just like he was just trying to just comb the darkness right out of his soul. Like he just wanted to comb the touching out of himself, or like he would look handsome enough that he wouldn't be a pedophile anymore. I felt bad for him sometimes. And then this other guy who didn't never comb his hair, the irony. But we played kickball with him, and once we knew that they were, some of their hobbies were, it took a lot of their power away. We'd fuck with them and, roll the ball, man. You ain't getting this ass, bro. Roll the ball. And, it almost puts you on a level playing field once you knew who they were. So I guess there was some value in them going door to door, because then you put a name and a face with the dark arts that they had inside of them. So, but yeah, you want to find some kitty touchers. I don't think you need to mill around, a Papa John's out there in Washington, D.C. Why don't you come on down to Covington, Louisiana, and get out there off of McGee Street where I grew up. And I bet you they still got a couple of wild, tender gents out there trying to be fancy with the young, What else, man? What else, dude? Let's keep it moving. Dave Chappelle's Age of Spin came out on Netflix, and you can check that out. You can also check out my special on there while you're there, and it is called No Offense. You can look that up and drop 5 stars on it if you don't mind while you're there. But Dave Chappelle has a new special out, his first one in a long time, and it's 2 specials, actually. And he's getting ripped up for making homophobic and transphobic jokes and remarks. And that, to me, it's baffling, man. Here, I'll read a little bit of the article. The former Comedy Central star cracked jokes about Caitlyn Jenner and transgender people. Quote, whenever I see one of them T's on the street, I'm like, I don't mind them, but man, I miss Bruce, he said to laughter from the audience, talking about Bruce Jenner there. Then he goes on to say, I knew before you guys knew, he says of Jenner's sexuality. I heard things on the street in Hollywood. You used to be out, see people. Hey, what's up, Kanye? Why the long face? Nigga, you'll see. I got 2 mother-in-laws now. That was one of the jokes. That's funny, man. That could have been a real moment that Dave Chappelle talked to Kanye West. He can't share that moment. He can't share the reality of a moment because someone is going to be offended. I'm just amazed that if you turn on a comedy show what do you expect? Dave Chappelle's not a preacher. He's not a teacher. He's not a politician. He's a comedian. It's a comedy show. That's why there's lights, a stage, an audience. It's just baffling to me, the freedom of speech. There's no, like, yeah, it's freedom of speech, but only if you want to say certain things, right? And that's not freedom. You know, I mean, comedians like George Carlin, Richard Pryor, even though they're still like lauded as the best, if they wouldn't be able to say what they said today. And that's crazy. When you look and say, oh, those guys are the best, but then when you put them through this filter of whatever's going on today and say, oh, they wouldn't be the best, they would be ostracized, something's wrong with the filter, not with the talent. You know, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And it seems like the only people you can still make fun of without the media getting upset are rednecks, poor white people, and white people, you know, and I don't think that that's fair. You know, I grew up poor and white. Trust me, it was hard enough, you know, feeling less than, you know, that was hard enough. I didn't need people making fun of me. It feels miserable, you know, being poor and, you know, surrounded by a lot of, you know, just ignorance and destitution and, you know, addiction and all the things that come with a poor environment, pedophiles, kickballing men, you know, just feel like there was enough going on with that where we don't need to be the last group of people that it's okay to make fun of as far as, you know, mainstream media is concerned. And maybe that's just my feelings. You know, I'm sorry if I'm getting caught up in my feelings here a little bit, but it's like anybody else gets made fun of. Latinos, black, gay, transgender. That's all, you know, it's horrible. If you still want to make fun of poor or ignorant white people, that's okay. It's not okay to me, you know? I feel like, fucking, let's make fun of everybody, you know? I mean, we're making fun. We're making fun, you know? So it's just baffling, man. I support Dave Chappelle. I support all comedians, you know? I mean, I have friends that are every creed and color and style, asexual even, comedians. And I love all their material. You know, I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing? You know, I'm not doing it. That's for damn sure, dude. I am not doing it. All right, guys, I'm going to drop a few dates on you, and then we're going to move on to some callers. And I'll talk a little bit more about my weekend as we go through it. Upcoming dates, I'll be performing in Sacramento, April 21st through 23rd, and that is at the Punchline in Sacramento. May 25th through 28th, I'll be in Tampa, Florida at Side Splitters Comedy Club. June 1st through June 4th, I'll be in Pittsburgh, where I caught pink eye one time up there in the Monongahela, and actually got a blowjob there behind a Giant Eagle, which is just a Kroger. It's a chain grocer. And that'll be June 1st through 4th at Pittsburgh Improv. And then I'll be at the Calusa Casino Resort, June 9th. And honestly, I don't even know where that is. So those are those dates. And yeah, I'm sorry if I am getting a little, you know, maybe I am getting a little political today, man. You know, just a lot. I mean, it's tough. It is tough to navigate through life sometimes, especially these days for me. And sometimes I just get agitated, you know, and sometimes I let it happen to me. I let it happen by even reading the news. You know, I should have stayed out of the dang news, man. I should have just read my book. I got this new book about truck drivers. All right, let's get to some callers, man. I want to thank everybody for hitting the hotline. Now, if you're not familiar with the hotline, that number is 985-664-9503. That's an American number that you can call and express your thoughts, feelings, concerns, issues that you're dealing with. I'm not a licensed dude, you know, but I've had a lot of experiences, and I'm happy to share them with you and offer any suggestions that I can. And and we're talking about masturbation and some of those issues. And I grew up, I've dealt with that over the years, watching the pornography and dealing with the self-skeet, alone pleasures. I'm no stranger to it. First time I got into masturbation, I found some titty literature and fancy booklets in my brother's closet. And I found a bottle of peach Alizé at the same time. And that was a liquor or a liqueur of sorts. It was pretty much an African-American liquor, I think, at the time. But I found a bottle of it in my brother's closet, and next thing you know, I was into I was getting dark. I was, spraying out and enjoying the pleasures of pornography and liquor. So, and some of that stuck with me for a while. Throughout my life, I've noticed that, instead of going on dates, I would just, and watch pornography. And a lot of my friends have reached out to me recently, my friends, and said that they're dealing with some of the same stuff, and they're, doing naughty things by themselves, even though they have wives and families and everything. And it's really an issue, because that stuff's pretty wild out there. And we're going to get to some calls here. We had a couple people call in about it. And I want to thank everybody who called in. I'll try to get to the ones that I can, ones that are appropriate. Some people called and were actually doing masturbation on the phone, on the hotline, and that's, I don't know who that's for. That's not for me, that's for them, and I didn't want that, but we got a little bit of that, and maybe we'll put that in some outtakes at some point, but for now we're going to stick to the plan here. Let's see what we got.
What's up, Theo? This is Chris calling from South Florida.
Chris from South Florida, I'm going to stop him right there. South Florida, I'm going to say, if you don't know it, it's a hotbed of anarchy. I'm going to start with that. Deviants, a lot of deviants end up there. Jugglers, magicians, pedophiles. A lot of pedophiles are arrested in Florida. What else? People with swords, dolphins, atheists, they got it all. So this guy's already in a tough situation.
I'm a big fan of you, big fan of the podcast, and seems like I'm kind of struggling with some of the same things you are. The pornography, I've stopped drinking alcohol like you have, and the biggest problem for me is that I feel like I have nothing to go to whenever I get stressed out. I have no way to bring myself that instant pleasure and kind of take me out of my thoughts.
I feel you, man. I feel you. I'm going to interrupt you right there and say that, you hit it on the head. You got to take yourself out of your thoughts, because that's what's leading you there. Your thoughts will lead you to actions, and your actions will lead you to better thoughts. So you're going to have to, I suggest that you're going to have to create some better actions, bro.
So my question for you is what are some of the things you do to help relax and help to relieve some of your stress other than drinking alcohol and watching pornography?
Well, Chris, I will try to. The biggest thing for me is closing the day. Like I can go all day with no issues. Fortunately, I've never had the problem of, wanting to watch pornography during the day or, jerking off in my truck or anything like that. I remember when I was young, they used to have men that would park back behind the Winn-Dixie, which was a shopping, meat and produce grocer, and you'd see them back there jerking off. But I never had that issue of daytime self-pleasure. And for a lot of people, the issue is in the evening, and it becomes a habit. Like a lot of people aren't even enjoying masturbation anymore. They're not enjoying the pornography. It's just a habit that they've created. So you got to create some new habits. And if it's at the end of the day or in the evening when you're struggling, then that's when you got to create some new habits and you got to practice them. Sometimes what helps me is to do a meditation, man. And I know it sounds, wild and cheesy, but when you meditate, you kind of take control of yourself back from your environment. Because there's so many things that are just wanting our attention these days and getting our attention. And pornography is a huge one of those. I mean, dude, you can log on and there's breasts and there's lipstick and, foursomes and brothers wearing sneakers, fucking women, I mean, these men are showing up to fuck, dude. If you got on a couple New Balance and a hard cock, bro, that's some real dictivity, brother. So, and that stuff can get addicting to watch. So you have to set yourself into a better mode. And I usually do that with a little bit of meditation. You can sit down. A meditation that a friend of mine taught me, you inhale real slowly for 8 seconds. You count while you're inhaling, and then you hold that inhale for 4 seconds. And then you exhale slowly for 8 seconds. Just count it in your head. And then you wait 4 seconds before you start to inhale again. And you just keep repeating that cycle. Do that for 10 minutes. And it might sound crazy. You might only be able to do 5 minutes at first. But if you can get to 10 minutes, man, it'll really set you in a more calmer state where you are more in control of what you're going to do next. And then I'd find, a better activity. If you need to make sure you leave your phone and your computer in the other room, if you need to read a book, those are things. And also, those are things you can do that will help. And also finding a higher power, like it doesn't have to be God. I'm not trying to lead anybody to religion, but if you can find, somebody, if you don't have someone, a higher power that you can say, look, I don't want to do this anymore. Please take away the desire for me to do this. And by putting that out there, you're voicing what you want, that you don't want to be watching masturbation or pornography anymore. And that kind of stuff can really help, man, because sometimes even creating a higher power can just create like some accountability for you. Another thing that I do is, this is going to sound kind of weird, but I do my mother got me a coloring book, one of those adult coloring books. I'll use that sometimes, just to keep my mind occupied. I will also read, and there's meetings you can go to, bud. I'll be honest with you. There's sex and love addiction meetings, SLAA it's called, and there's tons of men in those who can relate to your same exact issues. But I recommend some spirituality, I recommend some meditation, just things that are going to help you reclaim yourself, because it sounds like you don't want to be doing these things anymore. And that these are outside influences that are really reaching for you and getting a hold of you. So if you can reclaim yourself some, you're going to have a stronger fortitude from which to keep those things from accessing you. And you can email me as well, man. You can email me directly through my website. I can send you some links for local sex and love addiction meetings that are near you, where you can meet people who, are dealing with the same stuff, man. And I appreciate you calling and asking about it. I hope I was able to offer a little bit of thoughts and guidance there. All right, let's get another call here.
Hey, Theo. My name is Ahmad, man. I love your show.
Ahmad, love that name. Sounds kind of foreign, maybe. Originally foreign, now probably an American name as well. Desert descendant, respect, Ahmad. Beige power, bro. Beige power. Let's go.
You've got a lot of wisdom. I'm calling you today because I like what you have to say about masturbation, man. About, you know, I'm a young guy, I'm 22, college-age student, good-looking guy, and it's too much, bro. It's too much. I'm calling you today to ask you about advice for laying off masturbation and pornography.
Yeah, man. It's too much. It's too much, man. I agree. You know, I think it's one of the biggest things that is affecting men our age. We can't battle it. Like, how can you, if you're built in limbically, I think that's the term, in your, in your core brain to want to get some puss or want to hunt down a piece of ass or some titty, you're going, and then you're just flooded with it in high definition. It is too much. It's like it's like the devil got some machine gun and it's filled with pussy bullets and they are coming at you constantly. I feel you, man. It's too much.
And especially when it seems, to me at least, that in my age group and at my university, this is such a normal thing. You know, it seems like everybody watches pornography.
Well, I'm going to stop you there and say that, that's... It does probably seem like that, and that's probably true, but that isn't a reason to be doing it, if everybody's, killing whales with hammers and shit, you can't be out there, swimming around with hardware, dude. So you gotta, it can't be because everybody is doing it. That's not why you're doing it, I'm guessing.
It seems like everybody's still getting laid. I don't know. Maybe I need to stop taking what it seems like for the actuality. Any advice to stop masturbation and stop pornography and get back out there to talk to women would be greatly appreciated, Theo. Have a good time, bro.
Well, there's two different things here, Ahmad. You got pornography and masturbation, I think that masturbation is tougher to stop than to watching the pornography. The pornography, there's special filters you can get to put on your computer. There's special software you can get so you're not able to access it on your computer. So that's, those are some small things that can help. But also getting out there, period, and finding new things to do are going to keep you from the habit of going to pornography. And I'll tell you this, man, at your age, you're 20, I think you said 22. If you get out there and learn to talk to women now, while everybody else is spraying out and everybody else is, geeking their own meat, you are going to be heads and shoulders above the rest of your class. Think about it like this, like everybody else is going left, you go right. If everybody else is cranking it out and spraying, you get out there and meet a girl, It seems like that's going to be a great place for you to start, is just by practicing actually communicating with women in real time. And that alone, even just having some interaction and some fulfillment by having some real communication from the opposite sex, that could start to do wonders for even your desire to want to masturbate or to want to watch pornography. So maybe that's where I would start. I'd start communicating with some women of the opposite sex, even if it's, small talk or just, if next time a girlfriend introduces you to her friend, even if the friend is not a woman you're attracted to, just practice communicating with her, talk, share what's going on. I think just even building up some of that ability to communicate with women can take you out of using porn to communicate with women or feel like you're fulfilling that void of not having communication with women. So maybe just getting out there and building real communication, I think could really help, man. All right, let's take another call here.
What's up, Theo? My name's Chris from Nevada over here, and talking about your
Nevada, that's waterbed country. I'll say that.
pornography question. I would just like to say that out of all the addictions that I have, pornography has to be the worst one, and it's actually gotten so bad to the point where I can't get off with my girlfriend as much as I should be able to, and I think it's specifically due to porn. It's me seeing all these girls with huge tits, huge asses, and a perfect figure, absolute bombshells, and my girlfriend's not ugly by any means, but she's also not a porn star, so.
Yeah, I'll say this, Chris. before you even finish that, I mean, yeah, the resolution on pornography is clearer and brighter than actual life. So, I mean, the sex that we're looking at on the internet, it ain't even as freaking, real life piece of ass isn't as HD as the screen ass. You know, it's not even, so yeah, the reality is that your girlfriend could never compete. She could because she can't make her ass and genitals in HD. I mean, she can't make them, you know, as well lit as a lot of these porn stars are, you know? And I'll say this too, man. I have some friends that are porn stars. Porn stars overall, I feel like, look best on screen, you know? So it's not, it's a ruse, you know? It's meant to be a fictional universe, you know? It's like whenever you see like a truck commercial, you know, they're not showing you the truck when it, you know, isn't working that good, or when it's dirty, or when, you know, there's 9 kids in it or whatever, and there's starbursts, you know, stuck on the carpet and all of that. They're showing you the glossy when it's bouncing on the rocks and everything, right? So what you're watching isn't even reality. Let's just start there.
I think it actually has a big impact on me and my sex life, and I actually would love some advice on how to stop fucking watching it, because it actually is becoming a bad thing in my relationship, because it's stimulating me so much that now my girlfriend's not doing it for me. You know, it's something that's real and tangible, something that I can feel, for some reason isn't doing it for me. Like, I need to watch porn as we're fucking and stuff, and it's really becoming a burden on our relationship.
Wow. Yeah, man, it sounds like you're in the dragon's den there, dude. If you're having to watch pornography during sex, yeah, I mean, that means that you're needing this whole universe that's online. You're needing all that stimulation as well as real life stimulation. So you're going to have to find a way to take a step back. You know, I would suggest, you're probably so caught up in your own orgasm, you know, that if you can't even come anymore when you're doing sex, then I would try and just focus on maybe your girlfriend. I would start there. I'd focus on your girlfriend and not even worry about your own orgasm, you know? Because, I mean, I'm sure she's probably really suffering at the hands of this if you are having a real addiction to pornography, you know, and to all that butt work, and if you're watching all of that. So I would try to bring her to orgasm and just worry about that, man. You know, get your chick gassing up. And I mean, I think maybe hopefully that will help inspire you, you know, and help inspire a little bit more, you know, feeling into your wiener and everything. You know, I think that's probably a good place to start, is just to focus on her. And sometimes that can be, you know, if you really need to build a connection, like I used to lay next to my ex-girlfriend and just lay next to her for a while until I really felt connected before I started really revving up the sex activity. And sometimes that would help, you know, just really trying to feel her body and just feel that physical connection, you know, that connectivity. And second of all, man, if you're going to keep watching porn, I would try and, if you feel like if a woman's body in real life isn't doing it for you and you're going to continue to watch it, watch some other stuff, you know, watch big girls, or watch, African American or Indian women, or watch, bald women, or, short girls, or something where you're at least going to see a plethora of things. So you're not going to be so figmented or so focused on just a couple of images in your head, that you're trying to aspire or make your girlfriend become in real life this, big tittied, little sex kitten, Find some women that are a little more burlesque, a little bit more, Statue of Liberty kind of hiding under the dress, And I think at least that'll probably at least give your mind, a larger or a wider idea of what real women are, that they're, all different shapes and sizes, and that their bodies are real things. And then second of all, man, again, I'm going to say that the SLAA meetings, look it up online, Sex and Love Addiction Anonymous, I think it's called. And you can go there and you can get a sponsor. And I mean, you can really solve your problems, bro. I mean, you really, really can. And you can do it with a sponsor and somebody that's going to kind of hold you accountable. Because you said it out of the gate that you called it an addiction. So if you're already there where it is, it sounds like you might want to get some pro help on that, But I feel you, it's powerful, dude. We're battling. Just the titties alone. And the crazy thing is, after a while, you don't even see the titties. You're just looking at the crotches, and you just looking at things that are glistening, and the magic of them. All these ladies are doing spreading everything, and you don't even notice their kneecaps or their feet or anything. You just crotch centric, really, and people got their buttholes out, and it's, man, it's heavy. It's heavy, dude. So yeah, I would try that. I would try to focus on just pleasuring your girlfriend, make it about her, so that way you're not stuck in your own head. And then I would try maybe seeing about a SLAA, man, check it out. It's a real program that's out there, and it's everywhere. And there's a lot of dudes struggling with it, and it's real stuff, man. All right, guys, I actually got to go to sleep soon, so I'm going to call this. I appreciate the calls. I had another one that I wanted to get to. Someone had called in about what it's like to move to Los Angeles, but I'll tap into that next week. I appreciate you guys joining me for this past weekend and listening to some of this. If you have any constructive criticisms or suggestions about how to make the podcast better, write them in the comments, on YouTube's or on SoundClouds, and let me know. I'm learning as I go. I'm just trying to share some of the experiences that I've had, and just trying to be there for each other if we can, and I appreciate, you guys calling in with your issues, because it makes me realize that issues that I have in my life, that I'm not alone, that these are real things that a lot of, men and women are dealing with, because I want to be in a comfortable relationship where I can enjoy sex and enjoy touching, just touch a woman's shoulder and feel good, and feel sexy, and feel maybe an erection, like they used to do in the 50s or the 60s, and just come home and have your lady baking a cake or something, and you guys do sex in the kitchen, and it doesn't have to be, that there has to be pornography or dirty toys around, or flavored lubricants or anything like that. So I'm hopeful, man. I am hopeful. I'm going to say that I am hopeful. And with that, I think that's what I'm going to lead us out of here with today, man. A little bit more hope, because that's where we started at. So that's where we're going to
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jonathan Kite, and welcome to Kite Club, a podcast where I'll be sharing thoughts on things like current events, stand-up stories, and 7 ways to pleasure your partner. The answer may shock you. Sometimes I'll interview my friends. Sometimes I won't. And as always, I'll be joined by the voices in my head.
You have 3 new voice messages.
A lot of people are talking about Kite Club. I've been talking about Kite Club for so long, longer than anybody else. So great. Hey, sweetheart, here's the deal. Anyone who doesn't listen to Kite Club is a dodgy bloody wanker. Do you know what I mean?
Hi, I'll take a quarter pounder with cheese and a McFlurry.
Sorry, sir, but our ice cream machine is broken.
No!
I think Tom Hanks just butt-dialed me. Anyway, first rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Second rule of Kite Club is tell everyone about Kite Club. Third rule, like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube, yeah? And yes, don't worry, my Brad Pitt impression will get better.